Hey gang, so today we're looking at something sent to us by Big White EDC. It's the 01 slider in a white jade honeycomb shell with the ejection core. It's listed on Big White EDC for $179 right now, and if you use the code FidgetFix, you get 10% off. Okay, so I love innovation. I have talked about it before. I am a huge fan of designers making something new and just kind of pushing the boundaries of things. And the 01 EDC slider has always been kind of a classic. It's a favorite. It works really, really well. And I didn't really think it could innovate much further until this. This is fantastic. I'm starting the review before we get it on the camera. This is fantastic. If you have any doubts, stick around because, wow, this is a whole new action on these sliders, and I'm here for it. These are great. All right, enough of this. Let's get this on the camera. Let's see what makes it click and zip and spring and snap. Wow. It's the 01 slider with ejection core. Let's go.
Running through the fire, let's leave it behind. We gotta go now, go now. We gotta go now.
Okay, here we go with the 01 EDC ejection core. Now, before we start, what I do want to mention is that Kyle over at Fidget Focused reviewed this, and he really, really dislikes it, which is really opposite to how I feel about this. So I really urge you to go over and watch his review after you've seen this one and compare notes. Who knows? You might agree with me at first, and then you'll watch Kyle's and think, oh, actually Kyle's right, or vice versa. I don't know. But it's always fun when reviewers have different opinions. I think that's actually great because it gives you, the viewer, a lot more to think about. So this is the 01 ejection core. Let's get started. Okay, playability. Well, I mean, there's one thing we do with this. You can slide this way, or now this is a very simple motion. It's not even a very far motion, but I don't know. There's something about this. I love the snap of this. I love the mechanics of it. There's just something about that new kind of sensation that just, I could do this all day. Seriously, I love playing with this thing. Okay, sound. Well, I mean, sound. Let's get this a little closer to the Fidget mic, which is right over here. And so we get two different things in here. We get a mechanical sound because we have balls and springs. And we get this really big kind of chunky ejection piece coming out. So it's kind of a 2-for-1, and I like that. I know a lot of designers are doing that lately, where they are kind of adding different mechanics to a fidget, so it does more than one thing. And in this case, I find it does it really, really well. And it actually sounds really nice when it ejects. All right, haptics. Well, I mean, there's like the sound, there's two different kinds of haptics going on. There's the very subtle. It is a very, very subtle mechanic. And then this really gorgeous little chunk as this thing comes crashing out. Oh, man. I feel that vibrate through the top of my hand. And it's a subtle thing. It's not like a hard vibration you get with the mechanical. But when that thing snaps, it is a spring-loaded snap. And we're going to have a look at that, which terrifies me because I've already opened this thing up once. And my God, it is dangerous going in here, but we're going to do it. And you know what? If it breaks during the review, so be it. Ergonomics. The shell on this white jade shell is gorgeous. I've had a lot of 01 EDC sliders. I've reviewed metal, all kinds of stuff, but this I have never tried before. It feels like a porcelain or something. It's a really, really interesting finish. I'm sure it's obviously not something as expensive as that. It's probably a very simple finish on here, but the feel of it is sublime. I love running my finger across this. It's got a really nice subtle indent here. And again, this is very different because the ejection core is one thing, and then the jade, this lid is another sort of separate component. And in this case, Big White EDC has sent this to me as a single unit. So you can get different pieces. And this might not be as interesting if it's in steel or something, but the added texture of this piece makes this really, really awesome. All right, let's get into the weight. So in grams, we have 62 grams. And ounces, 2.2 ounces, so whatever. We'll call it 2 because I've never met somebody that could feel 0.2 ounces. So we'll say 2. And in terms of size, I mean, we're dealing with the same, this is just like every other 01 EDC shell. They have to be because they're all kind of interchangeable, and that's the whole point. So in inches, we've got 1.7, we'll call it 1.8. And in millimeters, 45. That's width. And then the height is about 18 millimeters and 0.7 inches. Okay, we are at the point where I am really kind of regretting ahead of time even doing this. And that's because I've gone through this once, and I was going to not even take this apart. I was going to recommend that you never open this ever. But I realized people are still going to do that. And if my pain can kind of help you mitigate your pain in opening this up, then I figured let's do it. The biggest challenge to this is knowing how to take the pieces apart and where the little balls come out of, because they are so small. They fly like crazy, and I've already lost the spares. I am down to just what is in here. They're somewhere in my room, and in fact, this has caused me to really kind of, like spring and ball proof my desk here. But I got to tell you, this thing, if you're going to open this, you really, really need to make sure that you are kind of keeping everything safe. So let's start. Now, to start off with, this takes a Phillips. This is a very, very tiny Phillips, and you do get a tool with it. I prefer using my own. So we're going to start with taking off the shell. Now, you can take off either sides of the shell and you're fine, except there is a tiny little piece in here, a little wedge that is going to fall out. So we'll see that in a second. So again, we can see very, very deep screws. And very tiny. Like, these guys are so small. And they do have Loctite on them, which, as you may know, when I record these, I'm always nervous when I see a company using Loctite, because it means that there is a concern with their screws staying in. And instead of addressing the problem and figuring out why and making it better, instead we get Loctite. So that I will never be a big fan of, is seeing Loctite in a piece like this. Okay, so even here, the ejection core is being a little tricky. It gets in the way, and then what happens is so what I have to do is align the ejection core because it wants to slide back, and when it slides back, that prevents the screws from coming out. Okay, so what we have in here right now is the side with this little pizza wedge here. Now this little wedge, what is interesting is you'll find there's a bunch of little springs in here, and this is what always feels super dangerous with these things. Okay, so we have this little wedge. Now this spring that comes with it goes inside the hole, and when you put the lid down, the whole point is the lid applies pressure to the spring, which keeps this little pizza wedge in place. Now this is going to be very important later, but I'm going to put my little wedge off to the side. And we can see inside here, we have this little spring and this arm. And this actually shows us part of the mechanism that slides out. Now we can even see here, without the pizza wedge pushing this little arm down, the whole mechanism kind of fails. So we have to take this piece out for now. Okay, so we have a spring. So what's important to note is that when we put this in, we see this little tiny rod. This little tiny rod is going to go in first. And it actually interacts with this little piece in here, this little lever. Now, what I'm going to do to remind myself is I'm going to take a little piece of paper. I'm going to show the shape. And I'm going to say that the rod goes like this, and then the little rod end goes on this side. And in fact, I'm going to give myself just a little bit of an extra hint here so that I know it's down. Okay, now I know this is elaborate for some people. Why would you bother doing that? Well, because this thing is a pretty complicated piece. So, okay, so I know that that goes together. And then once it's in, I'm going to draw what the bar is supposed to look like. It's important to do this stuff while you remember it, right? Like what's fresh. And then I know that that's my spring. So this tells me exactly how this is going to go back in. So now that it's open, we'll take off the plates on the other side. And then back here as well. So we can see what's happening here without the little mechanism in here. There's nothing holding this back. So it just always kind of pops forward. Okay, let's take the other side off. So, you know, this just feels like plastic when you get it open, but again, it's just got this kind of nice coating on top. We'll put those aside. So this is what we're left with. So again, it is always extremely important to inspect a piece before trying to open it any further. So what we see right here is we have indentations, right? We've got a track here. We can see this. Two different types of balls. So what that tells me is it's pushing, the springs are going to be pushing these balls upwards or towards the black. So we have to be very, very careful when taking this apart. Now I also know, I'm just saying we have to be careful because again, I have taken this apart and it can go wrong very, very quickly. Okay, so let's get our pieces off here. Okay, now I'm going to keep this in a separate area. Now this is, again, this just keeps our track. So this is kind of like our track guide. And down here, you can see there's like room to slide. So once this is in, this is what kind of locks our track from sliding off. I'm going to keep these pieces together. Always important to stay organized when working with this kind of stuff. Okay, we'll turn it over. And our last piece is on top here. So notice I go to open this and it snags. That's because we have this little lock pin here. Okay, so this pin, or well, screw, but this is our kind of our locking pin. So I'm going to put this off to the side. Okay. Remember, the balls and springs are pointing upwards. That means they are coming out of here, and they are so small. Now, when I'm pushing this, I am keeping my fingers down. I'm keeping my finger over here so that when they do pop out, I am ready to catch them. Okay. So here's my track. This is where everything is happening here. And look at the size of these tiny balls and springs. And let's just take this out. These, I cannot, it's very hard to explain how tiny these balls are. Like, this is the tip of, like, I know this looks like a, you know, an okay size bearing, but, or ball, but hold on a second. This is what we're used to. I don't know, it's like 2 or 3 times smaller than what we're used to. These little things, I've lost 2 of these in my carpet, and you can imagine, it's not hard to imagine how that happened. These are micro small. When I would want, like, getting something like this, when you get the accessories, I want like 10. Because they are so, I think the easier it is to lose something, the more I need in a package. Because I'm out. I'm down to none. All right, so let's look at this mechanism. Now that this whole thing is apart and very scary, we have, if your ejection core ever stops doing that snap, this is why. Your spring might get old. So you just want to replace the spring. And the way this locks is that we have a lock on one side that stays in place and the other one that's free. That's what causes our little snap, right? What happens is this stretches out and then the mechanism releases and then the whole thing flies forward. And that's the little part we see that shoots outwards. So if I put this back in like that, right? So the top, when the top pushes, the top is moving this way. And when it moves, see these little indentations here and here? That's for each of these pieces. So when this top slides forward, it's pulling this piece along with it until that little bar that we saw in the little pizza shape, which sits here, once it lets go or reaches a certain point, it drops, and then that lets this shoot forward because the lid is still in place, and that's what's causing this to fly forward. That's it. It is not a simple mechanism. I would never want to call it a simple mechanism, but it's very, very smart the way it's put together. Now, if you're ever wondering, just remember, like if you're ever wondering how to put this back together, there's 2 things. Well, one, you can only really put this back together one way. This little sort of piece here slides along here. This side has an opening, and that opening allows for this. This slide does not have an opening because it has to keep this trapped to pull it. So the way we want to put this back together is we open it up, we You put it on top like this. Okay. Once it's on top, you can feel it. So imagine, right? The lid is moving forward and then pow. That's all that is. That's the motion. Now here's the trick in putting this back together. We have our two tiny little balls. This is really, this is a really intense moment because as you can see, this little piece wants to kind of drop. So when you put it down, this wants to fall out. So you kind of have to hold it like this in the beginning. And you want to take this little groove here. Okay. See this little ridge? That goes into here. So the whole thing slides on together. And this is where some of you that are going to try to take this apart are going to lose these balls, because this is going to, you're going to put too much pressure in trying to line this up. And when it finally catches inside the track, the lid is going to go flying to the left and it's going to shoot these little balls out of their springs. So you have, everything about this has to be super, super delicate. Okay, here is the next tricky part. We need to push these balls down so that when we're sliding this on, they don't come out. Now, but they want to. So even though I know what I'm doing, I just did it wrong. So I have to do it again. So see how easily these guys just kind of move around? Okay, so now, this did not feel right. So I knew that there was something wrong. So the problem is sometimes these springs inside, these little, in this case what's happening is this little spring is bent somehow. And it's now preventing me from taking this off. What we have is a spring here. It's got a tiny little end that is sticking out. There we go. I don't even like handling these because of how small they are. Like they're so tiny that even just holding them in your fingernail can apply too much pressure. All right, so let's try that again. Make sure I've got everything set up properly. All right, so remember first we have to line up the grooves here. Okay, once that's done, I am taking a breath. I'm going to put this down. And I'm going to push down on both the beads. No, and one of them popped out again. Okay, and just to prove my point on how easily these things can go flying, I have just lost another one. I'm telling you, this thing is cursed to take apart. Don't take it apart. Thankfully, I have some of these little tiny porcelain ones that are the same size, so I'm just going to replace both with the porcelain ones. I don't think at this size it makes any difference whatsoever in kind of the feel. And in fact, these little porcelain ones are slightly bigger, just a tiny bit, but I did check, they fit in the holes. I did use one of the replacement springs because these springs are so small that they are also very susceptible to any kind of stress you put on them. And the little spring got caught when I was closing the lid up. So honestly, just again, I'm taking this apart to show you guys what's involved in this, but don't ever take it apart unless you really, really have to. That's all I'm saying. Just stay away. Okay, now there is another way we can do this instead of fingers. Fingers are a little hard because it doesn't really keep everything flush. So what I'm going to do is actually take two of these, I have two of these 01 EDC cards, and I am just going to press down. I'm going to press down flat on one, and then the other. There we go. So then when I slide this over, that's it. Oh, you know what? Those balls actually sound nicer too. They're slightly bigger, so I would consider that an upgrade. Okay, so now we have our mechanical back, and what we're going to do is, first thing is put our post back in. Okay, so we're going to take our little post. This is like our little stopper post, and we've got that back in. And so the stopper post is going to prevent our little ejection core here from sliding all the way out. And then I'm going to put our second stopper back in on the top, and that keeps the top lid locked in place. Now, it's important to note this does not go in, like it doesn't lock when it goes in. It just sits. Okay, so everything is in place. Oh, that sounds so much better. Okay, here's the thing. If you ever do open this up, get rid of those tiny little balls and add these slightly larger, like find some slightly larger porcelain if you can, because wow. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to sound. Okay, last is our little pizza wedge and arm that locks everything in. And we're going to go refer back to the little diagram that I drew earlier. Okay, so I know, in case I forgot, that the arm goes in with my little pin. I'm going to follow my diagram. It goes here. So it goes like this. Okay, so I pull it back just enough to load it like this. And the last piece is our spring. And this can be a little tricky because this spring wants to kind of turn sideways when you pop it in here. That's it. Make sure everything is locked into place here. So I can feel that that is working. Now next is our pizza wedge. Okay, we put that in. We've got our little spring, and that keeps it down. See, now we're working. Now, unfortunately, I wish I could show you explicitly how this mechanism works with the arm in there by taking the pizza wedge away. The problem is it needs this little wedge to keep the arm pushed down. The minute you release that tension, it doesn't work as well. So I can't sort of, like, again, we could sort of see it when I had it out, but it needs to be in here to work properly. Okay, so now this is where you have a choice of which side do you want to line your 01 EDC up on. And if you do it this way, I like the 01 EDC facing outwards so that I know what side my ejection core is going to come out on. So I'm going to pop this down. Okay, now one thing I am going to do is show you, if anybody is curious, the size of the bead that was in here. 1.8. Yeah, there we go. So 1.8 is what was in there. And I replaced I replaced 2 of them with this is why it's always good to keep some spares around. I'm going to say this is probably like a 2 or... Yeah. So I replaced it with a 2mm ball. So 1.8 to 2mm, the hole was more than big enough for them. And frankly, 2mm is much better. It's a much nicer sound. So I'm happy with that. If I were to ever sell this, just know it's coming with these and not with this little micro guy. Not with the 1.8, but with the 2s. Because I do. I mean, a lot of times I sell the fidgets I review. I mean, that's what a lot of us do because that's how we keep funding the channel. That's how we can afford to buy other fidgets to review. Okay, final thoughts. I know it took us a while to get here, but obviously I'm a fan of this. I think this is a lot of fun. I think it's better with the upgraded balls in here now. But again, we're all different. We all have different opinions. Kyle over at Fidget Focus does not like it, and that is totally valid. Oh my God, after everything, I just found the other ball. I was looking all over my floor, everywhere for it. It was on the floor. It was right on my desk. There's the other one in the bag. Ugh, okay. I mean, I'm sure that's going to be funny someday, but I paused the camera for, I don't know, about half an hour and looked everywhere for it. So, hey, there we go. Okay, well, you know what? It's safe now. It's in there, but I'm keeping these in here. Much better. So yeah, back to what I'm saying. The cool thing about reviewers is we all see different things. Everybody's got different tastes. And again, I think that's really important for you guys is to be able to compare, especially comparing cons and like pros and cons. So I think it's amazing to find 2 reviews of the same product. One is a negative review and one is a positive review. And I don't mean negative bad, just a negative impression of the actual thing we're reviewing. So please go out, check out Kyle's and then compare. And I'd love to have you come back and hear your thoughts on the comparison between the 2. But for me, this is a win. I really, really love this. I don't love taking it apart, but I love playing with it. All right, gang. Thanks for watching.